News was the headlines. President Jammeh relieves Ministers Lamin Nyambali, Dr. Edward Sajasane, and Yambamba Njaiketa of their cabinet portfolios and appoints the former Presidential Affairs Minister, Deputy Secretary General. Actors and fisheries experts gather for an interface designed to help them acquaint themselves with the new Earth Observation Information System. German politicians remember the millions of Jewish lives and others claimed by the war machine built by Adolf Hitler and his henchmen. And a Syrian migrant reportedly dies outside a Berlin government agency after waiting to collect refugee benefits for days. These and other stories coming ahead in this half hour. I am your presenter, FATOUMATA JOBE. The general public is hereby informed that His Excellency, the President of the Islamic Republic of the Gambia, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh Babli Mansa, acting under the provisions of Section 71(4)(b) of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, has decided to relieve the following of their ministerial positions with effect from 26 January 2016. Mr. Lamin Nyambali, Minister of Fisheries, Dr. Edward Sajasane, Minister of Energy, and Mrs. Yambamba Njaiketa, Minister of Presidential Affairs. A news release from State House reveals that His Excellency the President has in the same vein appointed Mrs. Yambamba Njaiketa, Deputy Secretary General, with immediate effect. The general public, the dispatch adds, is further informed that the Ministries of Energy and Petroleum have been merged as the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. The Department of Forestry, the State House press release states, is now under the purview of the Office of the President, whereas the Ministry of Fisheries has now been integrated into the Ministry of the Environment, Water Resources, Parks and Wildlife, and Climate Change. Thus, the nomenclature now reads the Ministry of the Environment, Water Resources, Parks and Wildlife, Fisheries, and Climate Change. The dispatch ends. The President, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh Babli Mansa, accompanied by a high-powered delegation, will leave Banjul for Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to attend the African Union Summit at midnight. All those invited to see the head of state and delegation off are therefore requested to be at Banjul International Airport at least half an hour before departure for the usual ceremonies. The annual scrutiny of the audited accounts, activity reports, and financial statements of public bodies by the Public Enterprises and Public Accounts Committees of the National Assembly is continuing unfettered on Wednesday. It is the turn of Gambia Civil Aviation and Gambia International Airlines to go through the process in relation to their activities in 2014. Rohi Bitey was following proceedings, and she now reports.
The latest public institutions to sit before members of the joint session of Public Accounts and Public Enterprises Committees of the National Assembly were the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority and the Gambia International Airline. The first to present their reports before deputies were officials of the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority. They came in their numbers as representatives of management to present their activity and financial reports for the year under review. Entrusted with the management of the Banjul International Airport, officials of the GCAA gave an overview of their operational activities during the period under review, citing it as a challenging year due to the impact of the Ebola virus in the sub-region, which led to the cancellation of many flights. In its financial report, the authority was reported to have made slight improvements, with turnover increasing by 4.36% from $361.8 million in 2013 to $377.6 million.
Even though as a state there was no registered case of Ebola, the negative press generated as a result of the prevalence of the disease in West Africa affected the country, with passenger throughput significantly declining, creating negative financial seismic waves, to use his own terms. This unfortunate period also coincided with the implementation of the Banjul International Phase 2 Airport Improvement Project, when, as an authority, we had to fulfill our obligation of paying local fees to both the consultants and the contractors of the project.
The operating profit for the year under review increased to 113.716 million from 106.65 million in 2013. However, the impact of the foreign exchange and interest expenses on the foreign currency denominated borrowings, which were incurred for the vital and significant improvements to the airport, making it one of the best in the sub-region, continues to adversely affect the financial performance of the authority.
The presentation of reports was followed by the auditor's report, which also paved the way for management to respond to some of the issues raised. The GCAA were accorded GPPA compliance of 96%. Members led by the Honorable Speaker Abdoulaye Bojang then rescheduled sittings for Thursday, 28 January for consideration of their reports. The Gambia International Airlines, the body mandated to engage in air transportation and its related services, came next. According to its managing director, Bakary Nyasi, during the period under review, GIA entered into partnership with Mauritania Airlines. The GIA boss further reported that the institution's revenue turnover is on the increase due to Hajj operations registering a steady increase.
Departmental contribution to turnover, total turnover 378 million. Hajj continues to be the leading department contributing to turnover at 58%, followed by ground handling. Coach services, ticket sales, commissions, and cargo handling continue to register low percentages.
GIA has registered a revenue of 377,610,000 in 2014 as opposed to 372,873,000 in 2013.
The external auditors raised their queries, which were responded to by management. The Gambia International Airlines was found to be 92% compliant with the procurement regulations, indicating a drop of 1% from 2013. The joint session, led by the Honorable Speaker of the House, after due process, deferred officials of the GIA to the 28th of January for final consideration and approval of their audited accounts and activity reports.
I want to congratulate you for seeing yourselves ready to be audited by the PEC, and we have listened to the presentations you made. We will, of course, take the next 24 hours to go through the documents ourselves, and tomorrow we will be received again for the question and answer and the final endorsement.
Prohibite GRTS.
Those in the fisheries sector are currently familiarizing themselves with the new Earth Observation Information System. The new digital software was launched a year ago by the West African states to ensure protection of marine resources. Etienne Silva has more on that story.
Using technology to monitor the country's maritime resource with just a simple click of the mouse. This is a new surveillance method which stakeholders in the fisheries sector are working to familiarize themselves with to keep illegal fishermen at bay.
We will be able to generate information. We should be able to, by using satellite images. For example, when you can see a vessel in the sea and you'll be monitoring that vessel, the vessel will be plying our seas, and maybe the vessel is not registered in the Gambia and is plying our territorial waters. You can always monitor that vessel.
The hands-on computer software is part of a 3-year monitoring for environment and security in the West Africa project launched in 2014 to ensure management and planning of Earth observation and marine monitoring data and services. However, participants will be taught on the operations of this facility.
We are going to train them how to use Earth observation in order to generate satellite images for planning and decision making.
The advent of this digital monitoring system has been welcomed with open arms by the fisher folk, especially those who have been introducing measures to ensure that fishing activities do not happen within the marine protected areas in a bid to allow fish to breed and spawn. One man who is also relishing this method is Dauda Sen of the National Soul Fishery Co-Management. The marine conservationist is hoping that the new initiative will eradicate illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing in the country.
And conservation is the guarantor of food security, because if you cannot conserve, we cannot guarantee our food security. And as concerns this workshop, or this training workshop, is very, very important in terms of fighting a regional approach to fight against IUU fishing. IUU means illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. This is a global problem. And even if you look at the value of IUU, it goes up to millions of dollars per annum. And the importance of this meeting is to build capacity of the fisheries operators in terms of how they are going to collaboratively conserve and manage the fisheries resources sustainably.
The Earth Observation Information System is both reliable and informal, as opposed to the old method, which is burdensome and expensive. This new method tracks illegal fishing activities taking shape within the length and breadth of the West African waters, thanks to the help of a satellite data.
It has some kind of database, and they have some kind of satellite, installed in all of these things. So there's a satellite that collects the information, pass it to the computers, and they process the information, and automatically they share the information to all the regions.
Illegal fishing has become a thorn on the flesh of many developing nations, not to mention the West African sub-region, where millions of cars was lost due to the practice. On the home front, the government has been reiterating its uncompromising stance to ensure such illegal practices are kept out of bounds along the River Gambia by introducing measures and penalties to deter perpetrators. The move is meant to encourage Gambian youth to venture into fishing, as well as bring about mass availability of fish at sea. Now, the new hope is that the latest initiative would not only facilitate the work of the fisheries sector, but promote collaboration and information sharing within the fisher folk in the sub-region. Etienne Silva, GRTS News.
Commercial drivers have been reacting positively to government's decision to ban the Gambia National Transport Control Association from any involvement in the transportation sector. The drivers made their feelings known during a tour of major road transport hubs in the Kanifing municipality by Mayor Yankuba Koli. Kumbaba went along and she now reports.
The mayor of Kanifing municipality, Yankuba Koli, was out on inspection to various picking points, a day after the announcement of the banning of the Gambia Transport Control Association in the country's transportation sector. The mayor and entourage were out to ensure the full implementation of the ban.
You heard of the press release from the Ministry of Trade that the Gambia National Transport Control Association has been banned, and all its activities are also banned. So, and their operation is bigger in my municipality than any other area. So this is why we're taking up ourselves as management. We came out to enforce it. That's the reason why we are out today.
The first port of call for the entourage was at the Jimpex main junction, where mayor and team had discussion with drivers at a popular picking point. Here, the mayor emphasized the need for all to observe the new directive.
It was a long time outcry, and I can see right now, even where we visited, the people are definitely in appreciation of the decision that is made by government. And they really welcome the decision, and they want to work with the municipalities and other agencies of development. It is honestly true out the tour. You can see it yourself that it is approved by everybody who is using the garage.
Vehicle owners have welcomed the new development, a measure they say will help them in their day-to-day business.
All what I want to tell them is to make sure that let them not be fooled by anybody. Let them see it as a decision to make them good. If you looked at what their contributions, the contribution that they are doing, and where it is going, and how they were also explaining about those contributions, you can realize that they are accepting it. And I'm telling them also to come and support government in this endeavor.
From Jimpex, the officials drove to the busy Westfield Junction, where Mayor Colley had a similar discussion with drivers. Here again, the message to the drivers was the same. I asked Mayor how effective the ban will be implemented. He has this to say.
Immediately we got information about what is coming up, we started to put our house in order to prepare for it. And that is exactly what happens. This is why we do not waste any time. We are right now on the ground to see what is going on and to inform the people that are affected, to tell them exactly what what it means if you don't, even if you don't hear it or heard it from the radio and television, we still come to tell you people, to tell them that this is exactly what is going to happen. And I think for my office, we are ready. We have already put a desk officer in charge of all the garages, and that we are going to the garages also. Again, we are moving to tell them the way we want things to work.
The new step taken by government is to bring sanity to this vital sector, which is very crucial to the country's transportation industry. Reporting for Grts News, I am Kumbaba.
The Forum for African Women Educationalists Gambia Chapter FAWEGAM recently used a donor brunch to lift the lead on its 2016-2020 strategic plan and program of activities. Janke Ture was at the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute for the Interface, and China reports.
For African Women Educationalists, the Gambia chapter, FAWEGAM, have adopted the 2012-2016 strategic plan. The strategic plan is aimed at consolidating the gains and repositioning the organization to maximize opportunities for change. FAWEGAM's development interventions, according to its national coordinator, will specifically focus on achieving the educational targets on gross enrollment rate.
We just completed our 2016-2020 strategic plan. We have taken it through the process of validation and presentation to the FAWE board, FAWE staff and members, policymakers, and today we are going to present it to you, the donors.
The Forum for African Women Educationalists is a pan-African non-governmental organization led by African women working towards equality and equity in education across the continent. This particular gathering is aimed at promoting girls' rights to and in education.
Since inception, we have achieved a lot and have seen parity in enrollment, the banning of FGM, and many other milestones. But we still want to see the retention rates increase, performance of girls increase, banning of child marriage, increase in women and girls in leadership positions, more female parliamentarians, ministers, female pilots, name it, the sky is the limit, and we want it for our girls.
The strategic plan pursues two strategic objectives, which included efforts to enable girls across the Gambia to access high-quality education and also to perform well at all levels and complete their schooling, while strategic objective 2 is to ensure knowledge and learning of gender and education are managed and shared for the benefit of all working in the field.
At FAWEGAM, our hearts are very big. We have such great big wishes for the women and girls, but our pockets are small. Our hearts do not fit in our pockets. We hope today, after listening to our plans, our hopes and our dreams for the women and girls of the Gambia, and learning how we intend to go about it, you will help us fit our hearts into our pockets.
Presentation on the overview of FAWEGAM's strategic plan, as well as the presentation on FAWEGAM programs, was revealed during the meeting.
Girls are singing, girls are crying, they are crying for equal rights.
The donor brunch brought together partners as well as students and has been able to bring to the fore concerns of girls in school and have immensely contributed to the sharp increase in girls' enrollment. For Grts News, I am Janke Ture.
We will be back with news from outside the Gambia after this break. Stay tuned.
Did you know Puro have instructed all GSM operators, be it Gamcell, AfriCell, QCell, and Comium, to deactivate all unregistered SIM cards? What? Yes! Deactivation started since the 31st of December 2015 and will end by the 28th of January 2016 deadline. All active unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated. So, if you have not registered your SIM card, please visit your service provider and register now to avoid any inconvenience before the 28th January deadline. It is your responsibility to make sure your newly purchased SIM card is registered immediately. Register now to avoid deactivation. Puro, working towards equity in development.
Welcome back. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, when people around the world commemorate the 6 million Jews and millions of others murdered by the Nazi regime. The 27th January is the day when in 1945 Soviet Union troops liberated thousands from the Auschwitz death camp in Berlin. The German parliament has joined the commemorations. DW has the rest of that story.
Today, there's no squabbling in the Bundestag, not about refugee policy nor party intrigue. Lawmakers honor the victims of the Holocaust, as they have done every January 27th for the past 20 years. Ruth Kluge, 84 years old, survived the concentration camps, first Theresienstadt, then Auschwitz, and finally the camp in Christianstadt. Today, the U.S.-based literature professor held the commemorative speech. She recalled her time doing hard labor in a quarry as a malnourished 12-year-old girl. We clung to each other, but that didn't help much. We couldn't protect ourselves from the cold at all that way. Our clothing was much too thin, and on our feet we wore newspaper. It helped, but it wasn't enough. And we had seeping, infected wounds on our legs because everything healed so poorly. Then she described how female prisoners were exploited as sex slaves, how a brutal SS man punched her in the face because, always hungry, she tried to snatch some scraps of food. But Ruth Kluge is not bitter. She looks positively at today's Germany, especially in the last few months. This country that was responsible for the worst crime of the century 80 years ago has today earned the world's approval, thanks to its opening its borders and to the generosity with which it has taken in Syrian and other refugees. I am one of many outsiders who has gone from being wounded to being an admirer. At the end of the ceremony, a musical remembrance of the suffering of forced laborers, uniquely expressed in a piece called The Peatbog Soldiers, which was itself composed in a concentration camp. 71 years ago today, Soviet troops liberated the Auschwitz death camp. It was here that 1.1 million people, mostly Jews, were murdered by the Nazis. Survivors of the atrocities laid a wreath at the place where prisoners were once executed.
Also in Berlin, a Syrian migrant is reported to have died after waiting for days in front of a government agency to collect benefits. The agency hasn't confirmed the death, but says it was never designed to deal with vast numbers of migrants. They are often forced to wait for weeks for their appointments and for their applications to be processed. The agency has become a symbol of Germany's chaotic response to Merkel's open-door migration policy. We have more in this DWTV report.
Endless waiting in line in the mud. That's what refugees face when they show up to register at La Geso, Berlin's health and social affairs office. In theory, they're supposed to receive health insurance and money for food. In practice, though, many are enduring chaotic conditions that have persisted for months, despite public pressure. There are so many people who have been waiting for a whole month, 6 days a week, and they can't get anything. It's horrible. And all the sick people outside here, they should really be able to move along more quickly.
I'm also in here 2 days waiting for the
social media. He stood here several times in the conditions we currently have here, in the wind, the cold, the rain. He was then taken in, and his condition deteriorated so severely that he had to get an ambulance. According to our information, he suffered cardiac arrest in the ambulance. Police, health, and municipal authorities say they've followed up on the allegation, but have found no evidence confirming a death. Still, the aid workers stand by their story, saying it's only surprising it didn't happen sooner. Endless.
We take our second break now. Weather is next. Stay tuned.
Endless waiting.
It is now time for the weather report from the Central Forecast Office.
The Gambia is endowed with a wonderful landscape full of baobab trees. Like its Cape Point in Bakau, it is one of the most exotic sceneries in the world. The baobab tree is a symbol of resilience, wisdom, and resourcefulness. For the baobab tree provides good food in times of hunger, rents its bark for medications, and its sap for glue. In the Gambia, there is a company like the baobab tree, 100% African and purely Gambian in all aspects, in know-how, design, value, capital, and management. That company is Elton. Elton, employing hundreds of Gambians and proudly associating itself with development in the Gambia. Elton, side by side with the Gambia.
Hello and welcome to the Central Forecast Office for a look at the weather report, and we'll start with the summary of the day's atmospheric conditions, where we experienced partly cloudy and warm conditions across the entire country during the day. Elsewhere over the Gulf of Guinea states, as captured by the satellite image, we can see dry and stable conditions prevailing across this region, whereas southern and parts of Eastern Africa are still experiencing rainy, lightning and thundery activities. Tonight, we're expecting variably cloudy, relatively cool, hazy, plus occasionally breezy conditions, and the same particular weather condition is going to persist until tomorrow morning, and thereafter becoming partly cloudy and warm in the afternoon. During this period, we'll experience northeasterly winds, and they will be running at a speed of 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. Minimum temperatures will be 16 degrees Celsius over Upper River region, going up to 17 degrees Celsius over Central and Lower River region, and dropping down to 16 degrees Celsius, as you can see, over North Bank region, 17 degrees Celsius over West Coast, whereas Greater Banjul areas will record 19 degrees Celsius respectively, and this will go up to a maximum of 35 degrees Celsius over Upper River region, going up to 36 degrees Celsius, we can see, over Central River region, and the areas across this region will experience warm conditions, and this will drop down to 35 degrees Celsius over Lower River region, 34 degrees Celsius over North Bank and the West Coast, whereas Greater Banjul areas will record 33 degrees Celsius respectively. At 6 a.m. we'll have a low tide of 0.3 meter and 0.4 meter at 6 p.m. At 12 a.m. we'll have a high tide of 1.8 meter and 1.5 meter at 1 p.m. Wave height will be 1 to 2 meter high, and there will be northwesterly swells. The sun will rise at 7:34 and sets at 19:03. That's the weather forecast, and a good night.
And before we take leave of you, a recap of the day's main stories. President Jammeh has relieved Ministers Lamin Nyabali, Dr. Edward Sajasane, and Yambamba Njai Keita of their cabinet portfolios, and appoints the former Presidential Affairs Minister as Deputy Secretary General. Actors and fisheries experts have gathered for an interface designed to help them acquaint themselves with the new Art Observation Information System. German politicians have been remembering the millions of Jewish lives and others claimed by the war machine built by Adolf Hitler and his henchmen. An Assyrian migrant has reportedly died outside a Berlin government agency after waiting to collect refugee benefits for days. That's all we have for you now. Join us at 10 for more news. Until then, I am your presenter, FATOUMATA.